This story isn't about a movie, it's about a reckoning. Because sometimes, the past doesn't knock quietly. It kicks down the door when you least expect it. The sun is barely crawling over Times Square, painting the city in soft gold. But inside the Good Morning America studio, it's already blinding. The lights blaze like judgment. Everything is too perfect, too calm, like a stage set for something that shouldn't happen, but will. Cameras hum in steady rhythm. The faint buzz of electricity fills the air. Makeup artists step back. Producers whisper into earpieces, their voices tight, rehearsed, and then silence. A silence so sharp it almost feels staged. The studio doors glide open. Before we dive into this incredible story, make sure you hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments what you think really caused Mark Wahlberg to completely lose it on live television. Mark Wahlberg walks in. Tailored jacket, crisp shirt, that signature Boston confidence smoothed by decades of Hollywood control. Every step calculated, every smile rehearsed. He looks flawless, the kind of flawless that takes years of practice, the kind that hides scars. Today's supposed to be simple, a routine promo for his new action thriller. A quick interview, a few smiles, then straight to the airport. Easy, predictable. Across the room, George Stephanopoulos waits behind his desk, calm and composed. His notes are spread out like a lawyer's evidence, the kind of order that hides intention. When Mark steps into frame, George rises with a polished smile, one that glitters but never reaches his eyes. "Mark, welcome back to Good Morning America," he says, smooth as glass. Mark flashes that movie star grin, tugging lightly at his jacket. "Thanks for having me, George. Always good to be here." His tone is warm, friendly, but there's armor under it. The voice of a man who knows how to charm a room without ever letting it in. The two men shake hands. Cameras shift focus, the red light blinks on. On the monitors, the image is flawless, two professionals smiling beneath the soft halo of studio lights. But in person, something feels off. The air's too still. The smiles linger too long. Somewhere behind the glass, a producer gives a subtle nod. A signal. George glances down at his notes. Mark doesn't see it, not fully, but he feels it. The faint chill under the lights, that instinctive animal whisper that something's not right. He sits down, posture perfect, shoulders square, the kind of discipline that comes from years of cameras and control. But there's tension there now, faint but unmistakable. George crosses his legs, pen in hand. The performance begins. His voice stays calm, professional, but the pauses, the smiles, they feel different, just a fraction too long. Mark handles the opening questions with ease. The movie, the stunts, the message of redemption. It's smooth, seamless, automatic. The crew nods along. The audience chuckles politely. Everything looks normal. But behind that glassy professionalism, something builds. A quiet hum of unease, like static before lightning strikes. Camera operators exchange glances. A producer folds her arms tight. No one says it, but everyone feels it. Something's coming. Mark leans back slightly, flashing his charming grin. "You know, George, this movie's all about second chances," he says lightly. The irony hangs in the air like smoke. George tilts his head, his smile tightening, just a little. His pen taps once against the cue cards. Outside, New York is waking up, horns blaring, sirens wailing. But inside, none of that noise exists. Just light, tension, and the faint sound of two men performing. Mark laughs at something George says, but it's hollow now. The laughter doesn't reach his eyes. For viewers at home, it's cheerful morning TV. But for those in the room, the crew, the producers, Mark himself, it's something else, something heavier. The air feels charged, waiting, like the moment before thunder cracks. Mark adjusts his mic, his smile still in place. But inside, that voice, the one that's kept him alive all these years, whispers again. This isn't a promo anymore. This feels like a setup, the calm before the storm. The first few minutes drift by. Polite laughs, practiced smiles, nothing out of place, until George shifts in his seat. "Mark," he says smoothly, his tone casual, almost kind. "Since we're talking about redemption, let's talk about your past." And just like that, the air splits open. The studio hum becomes a roar in Mark's ears. The word past lands like a punch. He blinks, smile frozen, a mask he's worn for years suddenly cracking at the edges. He's heard this before, countless times, but not like this, not live, not under the hot lights with millions watching. George continues, voice steady, deliberate. Specifically, let's talk about the incidents from your youth, the ones people say you've never truly addressed. Mark doesn't move. For a moment, even breathing feels dangerous. Then he shifts slightly, adjusting his jacket. His jaw tightens. His tongue presses against his teeth. Controlled. Careful. George, he says evenly, I thought we were here to talk about the new film. A pause, long enough to stretch seconds into minutes. George's expression doesn't change. We will, he replies calmly. But don't you think the public deserves to hear more about how you've made amends for those mistakes? That one word, mistakes, lands heavy. Mark takes a slow breath, trying to steady himself. He's done this before. He's been trained for it. Media coaching, crisis prep, all the rehearsed lines to dodge landmines. I've spoken about my past many times, he says carefully. I was a kid who made terrible choices. I've spent my adult life trying to make things right. George nods, polite, unbothered, but not convinced. His pen taps again, a soft, rhythmic sound that feels almost like a countdown. But Mark, he presses gently, some people think that just talking about it isn't enough. That maybe you haven't really taken full responsibility. That's when the first crack appears. Mark's smile falters, not much, but enough for the camera to catch it. The faint flicker of irritation glints behind his eyes. On the monitors, the director zooms in slightly, tightening the frame. Every tremor, every twitch, every drop of sweat will now be broadcast to millions. The crew senses it. A camera operator glances nervously at the floor manager. She shakes her head. Keep rolling, no interruptions, no mercy. Mark leans forward, elbows on his knees, his voice steady but colder now. With all due respect, George, I've owned what I did. I've apologized. I've spent decades trying to make it right. His tone is controlled, but beneath it you can feel the pulse of something heavier. George doesn't blink. His voice is gentle, but the words land like blades. Still, don't you think people want more than words, Mark? These weren't childish mistakes. Real people were hurt. The atmosphere shifts. It's not an interview anymore. It's interrogation. Mark's hands grip the arms of his chair. The tendons in his forearms stand out. His knuckles turn white. In the control room, a producer mutters, "He's pushing too far." Another voice answers coldly, "Let him. This is gold." Mark's gaze sharpens. The smile is gone. The eyes that once charmed red carpets now burn with something raw, betrayal. He realizes it. This isn't press, it's prosecution. The set, the cameras, the lights, they're all part of a stage built to corner him. The silence stretches, tight and suffocating. Every second feels like an hour. Then, Mark finally speaks. His voice is low, precise, but strained. I've been open about my past for years, George. I was a kid who made terrible mistakes. I've spent my entire life trying to make it right. George's next words are quiet, almost tender, but deadly. But what you call mistakes, others call crimes. The words hit like thunder. Mark freezes, his jaw flexes, the muscle in his temple jumps. The studio goes utterly silent. Even the hum of the light seems to pause. Mark exhales through his nose, slow, deliberate, fighting to keep control. I've taken responsibility every day since, he says, his voice tight, fighting not to break. George leans forward, tone sharp, surgical. But is that really accountability, Mark? Or is it just image management? A murmur ripples through the crew. Someone whispers, "Oh no." The camera zooms tighter. You can see it now. The flicker in Mark's expression, a tremor of anger, humiliation, disbelief. He lets out a breathy laugh. You think this is about image? You think 30 years of work is PR? George doesn't answer. He waits, calm, calculating, pen tapping lightly against the desk. It's a power move. The silence itself becomes a weapon. Mark fills it, voice rising just slightly. I've never hidden from my past. I've talked about it. I've worked with the people I hurt. I've tried every day to be better. I'm not that kid anymore. George doesn't miss a beat. But the victims? Do you ever think about them? About the scars they still carry? While you're living comfortably in Beverly Hills? That's the strike. Mark's eyes flash. His tone hardens, cutting through the air. I think about it every single day. You think I don't? You think it doesn't haunt me? The duel begins. Every sentence now is a shot fired. The lights blaze hotter, glinting off the sweat forming on Mark's forehead. His pulse is visible in his neck. Across the country, millions lean forward, their breakfast forgotten. They can feel it, that dangerous edge where civility ends and truth begins. George doesn't let up. His voice now carries an undercurrent of accusation. So you've changed, you've moved on. But tell me, Mark, does success erase accountability? Mark's breathing quickens, his shoulders tense. I've paid for it, he snaps, 1,000 times over. George's expression stays neutral, too neutral. 45 days in jail, he says quietly. That's what justice looks like to you? The words hang heavy. The air thickens. Mark's lips part, but no words come. His expression darkens, disbelief giving way to fury. And for a moment, even the cameras seem afraid to move. Then, Mark's control shatters. He pushes back from his chair, metal legs screeching across the floor. The chair crashes behind him. The sound slices through the air like glass. The studio stops breathing. His voice erupts, sharp, raw, cracking through the silence. Are you out of your mind? You think I haven't paid enough? You think I haven't spent 30 damn years paying for it? The sound ricochets through the room. The walls seem to shake. George doesn't flinch. He sits motionless, pen in hand. Call it justice, he says calmly. That's all anyone wants. Real accountability. Mark steps closer. His anger floods the space. Justice? He spits. You want to talk about justice? I've been living with this every day since I was 17. I've worked with kids, given millions, tried to show people they can change. His words slam through the air, heavy with emotion. The studio hums with tension. Security guards shift nervously near the walls, unsure whether to move. In the control room, a panicked voice hisses, "Keep rolling. Don't cut. This is history." Mark's voice cracks, half fury, half pain. You sit there in your perfect suit, judging me from your safe little world, pretending you know what that feels like. I was a kid, George, angry, stupid, broken, and I've been trying to fix it ever since. George's eyes narrow, voice quiet but brutal. Redemption isn't bought, Mark. You can't donate your way out of guilt. The words land like a punch to the chest. Mark's face twists, not in anger, but something worse, hurt. He takes a step forward, hands trembling, not from fear, but restraint. That's not what I'm doing, he says, voice low, trembling. This isn't PR. This is my life. Every single day, I fight not to be that person again. George leans back slightly, his expression unreadable. His calm, now icy, feels more dangerous than shouting ever could. And yet, he says softly, here we are, still talking about it. Maybe the problem isn't that people can't forgive you, Mark. Maybe it's that you still can't face what you did without making yourself the victim. The line cuts through the air like a blade. For a moment, Mark just stares at him. His jaw tightens, his hands ball into fists at his sides. The cameras close in again, closer this time, until every twitch of emotion is impossible to hide. His voice drops low, almost a growl. You think you know me? You think you understand what it's like to wake up every morning with this hanging over your head? You have no idea. The set feels smaller now. The walls seem to close in. Even the crew barely moves, afraid to break the tension. George's voice is calm, almost too calm. Then tell me, Mark, prove it. If you've really changed, why do you sound like the same angry kid defending himself instead of the man who's made peace with it? The words hit deep, not like an accusation, but like truth Mark doesn't want to face. He freezes, his breathing slows. His lips part, but no sound comes out. The red light above the camera blinks relentlessly, capturing every flicker of emotion, every fragment of pain. The lights reflect off his face, flushed red, tense, trembling, and behind that anger, something cracks. It's not fury anymore. It's sorrow, exhaustion, regret. He looks up slowly, eyes locking on the camera lens. For a heartbeat, he's not an actor, not a movie star, just a man stripped of everything. The studio is silent, the air thick. The sound of his breathing fills the room. When he finally speaks, his voice is quieter, heavy, cracked at the edges. "You want the truth?" he says. "Fine, I'll give it to you." He takes a step closer to the desk, shoulders squared, the fire fading into something far more dangerous: honesty. "I was 17, he begins, the words sharp, unfiltered. 17, high out of my mind, angry at the world. I grew up around violence, addiction, poverty. I didn't see a way out. I didn't believe there was one. So yeah, I hurt people. I did things I can't take back." The words hang in the air, raw and heavy. The crew stands frozen. The usual clicks of cameras, the murmurs through earpieces, gone. Every person in the studio is still, listening. Mark's voice wavers but doesn't break. "I've carried that weight every single day since. Doesn't matter how much money I make or how many good things I do. You don't forget something like that. You don't forgive yourself. You just learn to live with it." His hands shake slightly. The light catches the moisture in his eyes. For a moment, the Hollywood facade cracks open completely, and everyone sees the man behind the myth. He swallows hard, his tone lowering further. "The worst part isn't the headlines, or the jail, or people like you reminding me. The worst part is knowing that somewhere out there are people who still carry scars because of me, and I can't fix that. Ever." The silence that follows is suffocating. Even George seems momentarily thrown. His hand hovers over his notes but doesn't move. For the first time since the interview began, empathy flickers across his face. Brief, uncertain, but it doesn't last. It never does. He clears his throat, regaining his composure. His next words are soft but cold. "If you feel that much guilt, then why not reach out to your victims? Why not speak to them directly instead of doing it through cameras and headlines?" The question hangs in the air, poisonous. Mark's expression hardens instantly. The vulnerability drains away. His eyes darken again, voice turning cold, controlled. "Because, George," he says quietly, "this isn't just about me." He takes a breath, steady but sharp. "You think I can just pick up a phone and say sorry? You think the world would let that happen?" George's gaze stays steady, waiting, watching. Mark continues, his tone now edged with bitterness. "My lawyers, my agents, my publicists, they've all told me not to. For decades. They say if I reach out, it opens lawsuits, stories, people trying to cash in on guilt. That's what this world is now. Not forgiveness, not healing. Just noise and headlines." The words spill out fast, raw. "The system doesn't care about closure, George. It cares about ratings. It cares about control." For the first time, his voice breaks through the room like thunder, sharp, painful, true. George leans forward slightly as if regaining his footing. "So you're saying it's the system's fault?" he asks carefully. "That everyone else is to blame but you?" Mark lets out a short, dry laugh, the kind that sounds more like disbelief than amusement. "No, I'm saying the world doesn't care about forgiveness. It only cares about villains. People love a monster. It makes them feel clean." The studio stays dead still. The crew is glued to the scene, eyes wide, afraid to blink. Mark's voice softens, just barely. "You live. Long enough in this business, you learn. Redemption doesn't sell. Outrage does." The tension doesn't ease. It tightens. Mark glances toward the camera, then back at George. "You wanted truth? There it is." For a long moment, neither man moves. The air between them feels electric. And then George, always composed, always surgical, leans in just slightly. His tone turns analytical, cold. "So what you're really saying," he begins, "is that Hollywood has protected you, that it built a wall around you so you'd never have to face real consequences." The line lands like a gunshot. Mark's expression freezes, the color drains from his face, then disbelief flashes across his eyes, followed quickly by fury. His hand slams down on the arm of his chair, a violent echoing crack that jolts the entire room. Someone in the control booth gasps. "That's not what I said," Mark growls, voice rough, breaking through the silence like a storm. Don't twist my words. George doesn't back down. He leans forward, calm and razor sharp. It sounds exactly like what you said, he replies evenly. Your team, your agents, your lawyers, they protected you. That's not redemption, Mark. That's insulation. Mark takes a step forward, his shadow stretching across the desk. The fury trembles through his voice. You're unbelievable, he snaps. You think this is about protection? You think I wanted any of that? You sit here pretending you care about truth, but this, he gestures around the studio, this isn't truth, it's theater. The words slice through the silence. This isn't journalism, Mark continues, his voice breaking. It's character assassination. He slams his hand against the desk again, harder this time. George's coffee mug rattles, tipping slightly before righting itself. The sound is small, but it echoes. George stands now slowly, his expression unreadable. The two men face each other under the glare of unblinking lights, one red-hot with anger, the other frozen with conviction. This isn't an ambush, George says, his tone tight, professional, but trembling at the edges. It's an interview. If you can't handle tough questions, maybe you shouldn't be here. Mark lets out a bitter laugh, one that sounds closer to heartbreak than humor. You call this tough questions? You tricked me into coming here to humiliate me on live television. You don't want answers, you want blood. A production assistant whispers from the shadows, do we cut? But no one dares. The control room stays silent. Mark's voice drops lower now, not loud but sharp enough to draw blood. You think this is noble? You're not a journalist, George. You're feeding the outrage machine. You're turning my past into your performance. George's jaw tightens. Or maybe, he says softly, I'm just showing people who you really are. That line lands like a verdict. Mark stares at him, fury and disbelief twisting across his face. For a long, heavy moment, he doesn't speak. Then, quietly, almost defeated, he says, maybe you're right. Maybe I don't belong here anymore. The words linger in the air, fragile, final. The studio is silent again, but this silence is different. It feels hollow, dangerous, like something sacred has been broken. George folds his arms, voice steady but cold. Maybe you shouldn't, he says. Mark's chest rises and falls, his eyes narrow, his expression flattening into something unreadable, a man stripped bare. The fury fades, replaced by something worse, emptiness. He looks at George, then at the camera. The lights hit his face hard, revealing everything. Exhaustion, regret, rage, and something that looks a lot like shame. Slowly, deliberately, he reaches up and pulls the microphone from his collar. The faint static crackles in the speakers as he rips it free. He tosses it onto the desk. It bounces once, then lands beside George's notes with a dull thud, small, final, and absolute. You got what you wanted, Mark says, his voice low and raw. You got your scandal, your headlines, your ratings, maybe even a piece of my soul. Congratulations. George opens his mouth, but no sound comes out. Mark turns before he can speak. His chair still lies toppled behind him, a broken symbol of composure, of control, of everything that just came undone. He walks off the set, slow but certain, his footsteps echoing through the dead silence. No one moves. Cameras still roll, instinct overriding reason. From the control booth, a whisper. Cut to commercial. But no one cuts. Security moves toward him, but Mark waves them off, half smiling in a way that looks more like defeat than defiance. Don't worry, he mutters. I'm leaving. The studio doors open. He steps through them. For a moment, the world outside floods in. Sunlight, noise, reality. And then the doors close again, sealing the silence behind him. Inside, George stands frozen behind his desk. His papers are scattered, his face pale. He straightens them out with trembling hands, trying to recover the calm. He looks into the camera, forcing his voice to steady. We'll be right back, he says quietly. Go to commercial. The red light above the camera dies. The set feels like a graveyard, empty, heavy, filled with the echo of what just happened. Outside, though, the world is already moving. The footage spreads faster than wildfire. Headlines ignite, feeds explode. Mark Wahlberg meltdown, live on morning TV. Host confronts actor over dark past, chaos ensues. Everyone has an opinion, everyone has a take. Some call it bravery, Others call it disgrace. But everyone is watching. And out on the street, Mark steps into the sunlight. For the first time all morning, he's not acting. The air is cool. The city roars around him. Taxis, horns, life moving on. He squints against the light, his face drawn, eyes distant. He looks human. A man stripped of image, of armor, of everything the world thinks he is. For a moment, he just stands there, breathing, one long, shaky breath that feels like release. Then, quietly, he turns and walks away into the crowd. No entourage, no cameras. Just a man fading back into the city that once made him and never stopped judging him. Back inside the studio, the silence lingers. Crew members avoid each other's eyes. The monitors replay the scene, the explosion, the confession, the walkout, again and again, like a loop that won't end. And as the morning turns to afternoon, one question ripples across every headline, every post, every conversation. Who was really on trial that morning? The convicted kid who never stopped running from his past, or the world that refused to let him escape it?